The biggest crash of our lifetime is here. Gold will fall to $900. Maybe it's $250, but whatever it is, it's all happening, according to one person. So you've probably already heard about the everything bubble. It's one of Harry Dent's favorite lines. He's predicting the biggest crash of our lifetime. He says that it has already begun. It's pretty ominous. To put some numbers to what he's saying, he's predicting that the S&P will crash 87%, the NASDAQ will crash 92%. And yes, you heard that right, 92%. And that's just the stock market. Harry Dent says this will be a great reset of the biggest financial asset bubble in history. It's going to affect everything. Now, none of this is new, at least not to me. I've seen his interviews before, but when he got called out for missing his 2022 prediction on Kitco this last week, he kind of doubled down. He seemed to just roll with it, saying that he's actually been more or less correct with his predictions so far. That's one of two things that stood out to me. Even though he gave specific 2022 timelines for part of his doom scenario that didn't actually play out, he's just kind of rolling along like everything he's been saying is actually happening. Now, if you don't know who Harry Dent is in the first place, he's a financial researcher, he's an author. He's not the DC Comics villain Two-Face. This is Harry Dent, not Harvey Dent. And I don't follow his career closely, but it's probably a safe bet that he makes his money from book sales, from seminars, speaking engagements, and from his paid subscription newsletter. So the more attention he gets, the better he does. And as we all know here, you get a lot more attention making wild claims than you do commenting on what's actually happening. It's probably just part of his MO, because Harry Dent has been making wild claims for these catastrophic crashes as long as I've been aware of him. Now, I went back to see if I could get an idea of his track record. I'm going to miss some things here, but just starting out, one of his books from 1999, Dent predicted a significant stock market boom in the 2000s. So that's one. That didn't happen. He doubled down with his next book, saying between 2006 and 2010, we'd see that boom. Still didn't happen. In 2008, he published a book about the Great Depression ahead. Well, those predictions in there weren't true either. In 2016, Dent called for a major drop in the Dow down to 3,000 to 5,000. Well, the Dow has never dropped below 19,000. And in 2017, he was calling for that crash again. So bring things a little closer to what's actually happening. In 2021, he said that we would see this crash by June of that year, 2021. What we actually saw was a record high. And then in 2021, he said the biggest stock market crash of our lifetime would hit in 2022. And that's what he was getting called out on. Again, that hasn't happened. Now he's saying that, yeah, that's going to happen by 2023. So I hope I'm not being unfair here. Again, I don't follow Dent that closely. This really is not meant to point out where somebody has been wronged. I'm just trying to get an idea if this is someone crying wolf over and over, or if there's some part of what he's saying that's actually relevant and actually credible. I think that he has been credited with a few things. I think he was credited with calling the dot-com bubble burst. I doubt he was alone there. And I'm sure he's gotten a few things right along the way, but a person's track record is relevant to how seriously you should take their claims. When people say Harry Dent has successfully called 8 of the last 2 recessions, well, this is what they're joking about. Now, the most relevant prediction that he made in the past was that we would see gold at $700 by 2015 to 2016, and he said that that was a certainty. He also said that gold could be down to $250 by 2020 to 2023. That's where we're at now, $250 per ounce for gold. Now, again, I'm not making a video to drag somebody through the mud, but when I think of Harry Dent, that's what I think of. And he was recently on Kitco, like I mentioned, saying that he sees gold falling to $900 to $1,000 per ounce. So not quite $250, but still pretty low. And he's saying that we're going to see that by the end of this year or next. So 50% drop in the price of gold. Now, if I'm paying attention to predictions, I typically throw out the outliers. Gold to $5,000 by 2024. That's an outlier. I don't consider it feasible. Same thing with gold crashing to $900 by 2024. So most of what I've seen Harry Dent say falls into the outlier category. I don't think that we'll see a 90% stock market crash this year. I don't think we'll see this great reset of the biggest financial asset bubble in history this year. I think what makes Dent's prediction feel relevant, though, is that some of what he's saying is actually happening, just at a much smaller scale, a scale that if he was accurately predicting, probably wouldn't get him much attention. Now here's what's interesting to me though. Dent also says that he thinks we'll see a boom 2 years after the crash that he's warning of, this biggest crash of our lifetime. He says 2 years after that, we'll see this boom, and that boom includes gold. He specifically says that he thinks gold will go to $3,000 to $5,000 shortly after a crash to $1,000 or $900. Now, he doesn't think that any of that will be based on its potential use as a currency peg like we keep hearing about its potential as an alternative to the petrodollar. He thinks that it'll be driven by fundamental retail demand in places like India. If you do believe what he's saying, you'll either hold on to gold since it won't be hit as hard as other asset classes. He says everything's going to get destroyed, or you will sell it and then maybe come back in a few years. Now, Dent thinks the only place to be right now is cash or U.S. Treasury bonds. He likes 30-year bonds. And if you want another specific prediction from him for perspective, he thinks the price of Bitcoin will go down to $3,250 before booming to as much as $500,000. So clearly, the man lives in extremes. I can't imagine following the opinions of one person out there to make your financial decisions. And he says sell everything, get out of all of your asset positions. And I don't doubt personally that the markets could drop further than they already have. I don't doubt that real estate could drop further. He's saying real estate, by the way, will be destroyed in this crash as well. But there's a cost associated with liquidating assets, especially if we're talking about physical assets like real estate or precious metals. And if his extreme predictions aren't accurate, well, it could be a pretty costly mistake, because not only are you out those premiums and potential other costs from your fire sale, several of his crash predictions weren't only wrong by a little bit, not off by degrees, the opposite actually happened. So if you're concerned about gold dropping to $900 or $250 like his earlier prediction, I would say take a look at a few more opinions before getting too fired up. If anything, just consider what he's really saying when you strip out the hyperbole. He's saying that we're going to see a crash and the silly money is going to get washed out, wiped off the books, and then we're going to see a boom. So if you weren't planning on selling inside of a 4-year window, well, the swings that he's calling for, they'd be a wash. You only lose if you sell. And if you just work through logic here, the typical cost to produce that gold is somewhere between $900 and $1,200, depending on who you ask. So the price of gold isn't going to go below that. And if you look at what central banks are doing, well, they're buying gold at record rates with spot price well above $1,800. So nothing about this makes sense. Now, if you enjoy living on the edge of a doom cliff, or you apply a logic filter to the things that he's calling for, Harry Dent has some interesting things to say. But personally, I'm going to agree with the majority of analysts who are calling for a really big year for commodities and a continued rally for metals. So I'm not changing gears. I'm not going to sell everything I have. If we did see that $1,000 gold temporarily, which is what he's calling for, I'm sure any of us here would be pretty excited about the opportunity to buy, but I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for it. So what do you think? Do his predictions make sense, or is he just chasing attention? Let us know. And while you're in the comments, be sure to hit the like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.